Alright guys, welcome back. So in this lesson we're going to be covering sound effects and sound design. So we're going to be underlaying lots of different effects underneath our current audio from John and music as well. So this is really just going to help add that sort of extra sort of professional feel to the overall video and really sort of enrich the overall sound quality and overall experience of the actual video. So we're going to cover where to source our sound effects from. I'm going to give you some free places where you can get free sound effects, some that are paid for subscriptions, and I'm going to show you how to create a database of your own sound effects over time as well. Also, we're going to be covering sort of sound effects that go under specific parts of the video. So sort of individual sound effects, maybe like a cash machine or some type in that would suit a certain part of the video. We're also going to cover some overall sort of global sound effects that can go underneath the whole video to sort of really enrich that overall audio sound throughout, as well as a couple of sort of cinematic sound effects as well that are just going to help increase the tension and the feel of the video as well. So we're going to dive straight in. We're going to open up Premiere, and now the bit that I'm going to be showing you the sound design on is the intro here. So let's just have a quick little watch of that.
Masayoshi Son was the richest man in the world for 3 days, and then he lost about $70 billion almost overnight, the biggest personal loss in history.
So that's currently got no sound effects underneath it. So we've got the music and we've got John's audio. I'm just going to watch it one more time, and I'm going to start stop as we go and just call out some ideas of some of the sounds that I think should be added to make that viewing experience a little bit better.
Masayoshi Son was the...
So straight away at the beginning, when this comes in, I think we can have like a nice sort of rising effect, sort of a quick sort of impact hit, perhaps. You see it a lot in a lot of sort of film trailers. There'll be like a big sort of sound effect at the beginning. That's like a big hit to sort of give that impact that the video has started. There's also quite a lot of lines being drawn. So maybe we could have like some highlight sound effects or some like some sort of crackling or wind, maybe some wind ambience coming in at the beginning there.
The richest man in the world for...
Okay, then we have the sort of cash falling. So maybe we could have like a cash register, sort of like a ding effect come in here.
For 3 days, and then he lost a...
And then we have this transition here. So I think to emphasize the transition here, it looks a bit like a lightning bolt. So I think maybe some sort of thunder as well, sort of coming in underneath the visual there.
About $70 billion almost overnight, the biggest personal loss in history.
Again, some sort of money noises or some wind. Okay, so I'm going to start by showing you where we source our sound effects from. Now there's lots of different websites out there. So for example, there's a free website called Zapsplat. Now if you are on a bit of a budget, then you can download these sound effects for free. You just need a login details, and they do have a paid subscription as well, where you get more access to a wider range of sound effects. But for the most part, there are some free ones on there for you to download. So let's go ahead and have a little look on Zapsplat. So for example, I know that I want that sort of cash register sound effect and various different ones. So here we go, cash register. Go ahead and have a little listen. Perfect. So that would be like the kind of sound that I think I would want for this little section here where the money starts falling down. So like a cash register sound effect, as you can see on that visual there. So as I said, Zapsplat is free. They do have a paid subscription, but we use Epidemic Sound. Now Epidemic Sound is a paid subscription. However, they do have a lot more to offer in terms of sound effects. So let's do the same thing here. Let's type in cash. Okay, so we've got about 82 results, and let's hear what we have. So let's hear that one again. Now, over time, what we've done as well is we've created our own sort of database of various sound effects. Now, we've been doing this for sort of 10 years plus. So there's quite a lot in there, because what you'll find from video to video is you're going to want similar sound effects. So if I go ahead and open that up, so we have lots here, and I can just do the same thing. So it's basically creating our own database offline. I'm just going to go ahead and type in cash in our one here. Let's see what we've got. So we've already downloaded one in the past. Let's have a little listen. Perfect. That's exactly what I want. So we're going to go ahead and drag that in. Cool, and here's my first sound effect placed on our timeline. So let's line this up. It might come in too loud to begin with, but we're just lining it up. So it's obviously too loud at the moment. So the money starts coming in there, but I'm going to time it up this time to John's voice.
Richest man in the world for 3 days.
So I think I'm going to have it come in about there. So the richest man in the world for 3 days. Cha-ching. Now we're going to bring down the overall audio. So we're just going to bring this down a fair bit and see, it's a bit trial and error, but we want it to sort of sit around, if I play just this track, yeah, sort of like -24, -18, around that sort of range. Same as the music underneath John's voice, really. And normally I just add like a crossfade either side, so it kind of fades in a little bit up rather than just starting from static. So I'm just going to dive through a little bit and add a few more sort of generic ones. So I'm going to add that whoosh sort of hit at the beginning. Let's have a look what I have here. So if I type in maybe like a whoosh. Okay, so I'm going to add that whoosh in here. Let's see how that looks. Cool, that's quite nice. It's quite quiet. I might actually bring that up a little bit as it comes in. So we've got that little whoosh now coming in at the start. I also like how the kind of, it almost looks a bit watery, like the effect that comes in. So I might add like a kind of like a water sound effect to that as well. Like, let's see what we've got. First to type in water. Okay, let's see. We've got a couple of whooshes. Okay, yeah, something like that. That's kind of what I had in mind. Cool, let's bring that sound effect in. Let's maybe hear that at the start as well, alongside our other whoosh. I'm going to add these fades in and out either side. Let's bring it in a bit, and we're going to cut a little bit off the start so that it comes in a little bit sooner. Let's see how something like that sounds as well. So the two of those together. Okay, so it's a bit sharp on the fade off. Let's bring that fade right out. It's also a little bit loud. Let's bring that down. See how that sounds.
Masayoshi Son was the richest man.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's still a little bit loud. I'd say the water whoosh is a bit too heavy.
Masayoshi Son was the rich.
Okay, it's not bad. It's still a bit loud. Bring it down even more.
Masayoshi Son was the richest.
Cool, I quite like that.
Masayoshi Son was the richest man.
Okay, let's see like maybe a hit at the beginning as well. Let's have a little look. So as I'm searching for all of mine through our pre-made folder here that you can see, but as I said, Zapsplat, Epidemic Sound, all these places online as well. So sort of find these same things. I would just be typing the same search in on there as well, and then downloading them, creating a database of all of those in one place. Let's see what we got in terms of hits. Okay, a bit loud. So let's see, transition whoosh hit, got a drone hit. Okay, I like that, that's cool. Let's bring that in, bring that right to the start. Let's have a little look. Okay, it's actually quite loud still on these whooshes. I'm going to bring that water whoosh right down. I just want it to be really subtle. I can still hear it coming through quite loud. And let's add a similar fade up to this. Cut a little bit off the start so the hit comes in a little bit earlier.
Masayoshi Son was the richest.
Okay, and then add a fade down to this. Let's add like a really long fade down. And let's bring the overall sound on that down as well straight away.
Masayoshi Son was the richest man in the world.
Let's have a look with visual.
Masayoshi Son was the richest.
Cool, and so let's listen to that just with the sound effects so you can see really what they're doing. So let's solo those. Cool. So that's just with those sound effects there. And then let's listen to it with sound effects and music. Cool, so you can start to hear and see what it's doing there. And let's listen to it with John's voice as well. So everything all together. One more time.
Masayoshi Son was the richest man in the world for 3 days. And then he lost about 70.
Cool, so it's starting to come together. Another one that I mentioned was the kind of the lightning bolt there. So I'm going to go find some thunder. Thunder. Let's see what we got. Perfect. That sounds like thunder to me. It's obviously very loud at the moment, so let's bring that in straight onto our timeline and zoom in. Let's line it up first of all, then we'll worry about the sound. So I can see the lightning bolt starts there. It's the lightning luma map. So we'll probably add a fade up to it here. We want the kind of bolt to come in maybe about there. Fade right up to that. So put a long fade out on the end of this one and bring it massively in for the length of the luma. Cool. Might have put that in a bit too much down that end and then bring that back in. There we go. So let's just see roughly how that's looking. Obviously it'd be very loud. Okay, that will be cool. I like how like ominous it is, and like, let's bring down the overall level on that. Here we go. Let's see.
3 days, and then he lost about 70 billion.
Okay, it's kind of a little bit overshadowed by this, so I'll bring this one a little bit this way.
3 days, and then he lost about.
Let's bring it up a little bit now. Let's have a little watch.
3 days, and then he lost about 7.
Okay, too loud. So yeah, you're just kind of playing around with it a little bit to get that kind of sweet spot.
3 days, and then he lost about $70 billion almost overnight.
Cool, that's starting to look pretty good. I might actually bring the ka-ching in as soon as the money starts falling. I just feel like it doesn't quite work there with his voice as well as I thought it would. And I might bring the overall volume down just a little bit on it because I still want to be able to hear what's being said quite well. Let's have a look.
Masayoshi Son was the richest man in the world for 3 days, and then he lost about $70 billion almost.
Cool, I think that's good. I think overall everything needs to come down a little bit, so I'm just going to bring these down. We're using the audio gain. I just pressed G there whilst selecting the clips. I'm going to bring everything down to just about -3.
Richest man in the world for 3 days, and then he lost about $70 billion almost overnight.
There you go. I've started to add the sort of overall sort of individual sound effects that are very specific to what's being seen. So there's things that come in later on, for example, during this bit. So here's one I've sort of pre-done already that because I knew I'd have the idea here. So you've got images coming in, sort of like as if it's like from an old projector. So I've obviously added here, as that happens, sort of clicker noise, like an old camera effect.
He made the greatest.
So you can see I'm sort of adding individual effects to sort of where they should individually go. Now also as well, I want to show you how to add some sort of overall tone to the video, some sort of underlying audio, so that if there's ever silent during any part, there's always some noise. So let's add some overall sort of sound effect that's going to go underneath the whole video. Let's find, I'm going to type in drone. So it's going to be like an underlying kind of ambient drone track. So let's hear, look, we've got a hollow drone here. Cool, so that's kind of like that ominous kind of feel, and it's about 50 seconds in length, so that's the length of the video, give or take. So I think that'll be a good fit that kind of just sits underneath. I'll listen to one more. We've got a dark drone. Ah, it's even better. So it kind of just sits underneath, giving that sort of overall kind of ominous feel to the video. And it might change when it gets a bit more upbeat here, but it should start kind of ominous and dark, I think. Let's add this here. Oh. So I'm just copying and pasting the fade in from one clip to another. Let's drag this in a bit and drag this right up. Okay. So I'm just going to listen without any visual and see roughly how loud that is.
Masayoshi Son was the richest man in the world for 3 days, and then he lost about $70
bring it right
billion
down.
almost overnight. The biggest personal loss in history. On the flip side, he once managed.
Cool, so it's going to be really subtle. So if I just solo this, that's how loud it's going to play. Cool, so it's really, really subtle, but that's going to play throughout and be kind of underneath. And I also might add a bit of like ambient kind of wind to give some overall kind of feel as well. Let's see what we got. We got quiet wind. Cool, I'm going to add that in as well. Let's have a little feel of that. Bring that down. So let's have a little play here. Let's copy and paste the sound effect over. Play just these two. There we go, that's how quiet I want it. So there's just some underlying tone underneath that probably won't really be heard for the most part, but it's there. This is especially useful in a longer form video because obviously John's talking very fast in this video because it's 1 minute and he's got to get a whole story across. But in a long video, this will be really useful to kind of have like an own underlying sort of tone throughout, especially if you want it to be quite suspenseful. This drone's really good at adding a bit of underlying suspense without people really noticing it too much. Okay, let's see how that looks with some visual just with it underlying. Perfect, I quite like that. And then let's see it just now with that and the sound effects. Cool, so you can see it's starting to come together there. You've got the underlying sound effects, you've got these individual sound effects that are really sort of bringing it together. Let's hear it with the music as well. So you don't want these to be too distracting. They're going to sit underneath the audio. So obviously John's talking, the audio, the voiceover, that's the most crucial part. You obviously want to make that really audible. You don't want to make those sound effects and stuff too loud to distract too much, but they should be there and kind of subtly heard as you're watching it. So just add a little bit of emphasis to what he's saying and what's going along with the video. So let's listen with John's voiceover as well.
Masayoshi Son was the richest man in the world for 3 days, and then he lost about $70 billion almost overnight, the biggest personal loss in history.
So what I would do now is I'd go through the whole video and just layer it exactly like I am doing. So I'd find a certain bit and be like, okay, I think I want that sound effect there. I'd layer it in. And by the end of it, you're going to have, just like your visual at the top, loads of different individual sound effects. I'm going to show you one more specific sound effect that I like to use to add tension, and then I'll show you a few effects that you can add to some of the sounds to get like a bit of a different kind of ominous feel to them as well. So I'm going to add a riser. So let's grab a riser. Now this is just going to basically rise in sound and sort of tension and then cut off quite sharply. Okay, so it like builds all the way up and then cuts out. Okay, so I'm going to show you at roughly at the end of the video how something like that would look. So we've got
the full story of Masa right now on Magnix Media's YouTube channel, which will...
So you can already start to see how that's going to work. So
which will show you how...
And all gone. So let's bring in this end a bit, let's fade it out. We might end up, because it's a repeating video, it's going to go straight back to the beginning and loop. We'd probably just cut off. So we might not even need, let's just cut it off. It might sound a bit abrupt at the moment, but what I will show you is a little trick for a loop video in a minute.
Channel, which will show you how...
Perfect. And then let's bring this down a little bit in terms of volume.
On Magnix Media's YouTube channel, which will show you how...
Get a little bit louder.
Magnix Media's YouTube channel, which will show you how...
Cool. So that's like a little rising effect.
Channel, which will show you how...
And what I'm gonna do to really extend this out is I'm gonna copy this. Well, I'm gonna extend it all the way out to the rest of the clip. I'm gonna cut it and move that part to the beginning of the video, so that when it loops, it sounds a lot more congruent. So it's going to join back up to the start of the video.
Masayoshi Son was the...
So it's going to go from there.
Channel, which will show you how...
Okay, so it rises up, disappears, and it will start again exactly here.
Masayoshi Son was the richest man in...
So that's like a little riser effect that can be quite useful to add a bit more tension, especially when you want to make a point or add emphasis or like build up something dramatic and then cut it off. That's a really good, useful way of doing that. And then a couple of effects that I like to use to add a little bit more is one called a low pass. It's going to make it sound like it's like a lot further away, more in the distance. So it's like a little bit more subtle. So I've put it on the cash register at the moment, and I'll play it with and without. So you see it's kind of like muffled, almost like it's like in the next room sort of thing. Okay, and let me play it without. So it's really rich in sort of the audio, it's very audible there. And then with, so it's a lot more subtle. So what you might have to do for that is now bring up the audio a little bit, because it is obviously quieter. That's one of the natures of the effect. Let's just bring up the audio a bit. Let's see how that looks with everything else.
Richest man in the world for 3 days.
Okay, it's a little bit quiet now. Let's bring it up a bit more.
Richest man in the world for 3 days.
Now, it might not, in this case, quite work so well on that effect. So let's undo a few of those a second. Instead of that clip, I'm going to add it to our thunder. Make that a little bit more subtle, I think. There you go, that's nicer. That's like a little bit more in the distance. Kind of thunder. Let's bring up the overall audio a bit and see how that balances out with the rest.
3 days, and then he lost about $70 billion almost.
Nice, that sounds like nice and rich. Now I really like how that low pass is affecting that clip. Let me play it with and without so you can hear it. So this is with, a little bit more subtle, more in the distance. This is without. So it's a little bit too loud, I feel. So let's play that sound back on and hear that again.
Masayoshi Son was the richest man in the world for 3 days, and then he lost about $70 billion almost over.
Perfect, that's sounding good. And then another effect I like to use is a reverb. So this is going to sort of echo out your clip a little bit. I like to use the studio reverb. Let's try this one on the cash register, see how that sounds. So it's just literally dragging that and dropping it on.
Man in the world for 3 days, and then he...
Okay, let's see, it might not be long enough. Can always edit it a bit. Let's bring the room size and the decay up a little bit, so it should drag out the overall effect. Let's have a little listen. Okay, and let's listen without. Let's go even more. Let's make it a longer decay. So did you hear how that's like ringing out for a lot longer? So that's without, so it kind of fades quite quickly. Whereas with, let's have a little listen. It kind of echoes out for a little bit longer, kind of like stays with us. Let's even go even more, and let's bring up the wet a little bit. Cool, you can really start to hear that now. Let's bring up the wet even more. Cool, so it kind of like echoes out a little bit more, a little bit like elongates it. Cool, let's listen to all of that together.
Man in the world for 3 days, and then he lost about 70.
Some of these will work really nice with certain clips, some not so much, but that's nice and subtle, but I really like that overall kind of effect that it's having there. Perfect, so yeah, I'm going to go ahead and finish the rest of this video, just add in all of those sound effects, and then in the finished product you'll be able to see all the little bits that I added. So yeah, main things to take away is to use the online services to find your sound effects, create your database over time so that you don't have to keep always going online and finding new sound effects. You can reuse old sound effects that you've created a database for. Add in those specific sound effects in place, bringing down the overall kind of audio. As I said, we want most of our sound effects. If I was to play just the sound effects, you can see on the audio track mixer over here, roughly where they're coming out. So some of them are, here you go. So leveling out under the voice. That one there was a little bit loud. Which one was that? Ah, this is my whoosh. Let's bring that down. We don't want them coming too high. In fact, I can set a limiter on them as well. Here you go, so max peak never comes out past here. There we go. But going off this audio meter, making sure nothing's coming in too hot, and that the voice is sitting a lot higher than these effects are coming in. And then obviously as well, adding those overall sort of ambient tracks, those underlying tracks that go the whole way throughout, and those specific risers for building tension. Play around with this, like you can get as creative as you want. Sometimes I spend quite a lot of time on the sound design. I feel like it's a really important part of the video that really adds that extra sort of element. So yeah, experiment with it and see you in the next one.